Hey, what's up, everybody? This is King Ramses coming with another video on basically the second part. I made another video which I was laying out the main reasons why I think Islam is not a good ideology, or Islam is not um, basically the things that turned me off when it came to Islam as an ideology. And in this video, I'm gonna lay out a bunch of different things or reasons. There's gonna be like a bunch of more reasons as to why for me I got turned off, or I was not basically willing to continue in this religion, or willing to believe in the rules that this religion basically gives away or projects. You know what I'm saying? So I want to start by saying that the main thing in the last video, I've talked about like a bunch of reasons of why there's a lot of verses in the Quran and in the Hadith, which are the main like sources of excuse me, which are like the main sources of Islamic law, where all the laws are taken. So I talked a little bit about how in the Quran and in the Hadith, basically the last verses, or the last Islamic law, is that there basically should not be any reconciliation or approval of other religions, and just like it's kind of like either Islam or all these other religions mainly. So I talked a little bit about like some of the evidence, and how in the Quran and the Hadith I gave examples of like how it says that with like other non-Muslims there is like a specific type of treatment, and there is a specific type of rules that comes to them, to non-Muslims, that basically makes it like impossible for people, or for Muslims, to live together peacefully with non-Muslims. And at any time when Muslims live peacefully with non-Muslims is either because they're in a weaker situation and they can't get their way according to the Islamic law, or it is because they believe in this, you know what I'm saying, but they're waiting like to get in a stronger position so they can apply their laws, or like enforce their Islamic laws on other people, namely non-Muslims. So that's the first thing. What I wanted to say was that in the main like Islamic law, there is a specific set of rules, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, for example, the non-Muslims, the rules to deal with the non-Muslims, which is in Islam is termed like kuffar, and the people of the book, which they're the Christians and the Jews. And basically there's different rules to deal with those with different types of people, the non-Muslims, and it all depends on their classification. So when it comes to kuffar, or non-believers, or what Muslims, or Islam perceives to be non-believers, which is mainly like anybody that like doesn't believe in Islam is mainly a non-believer in the Islamic eye. So anybody that doesn't really conform to the same principles of Islam and the same exact rules the Islam has about like the imagination for like God and for the prophets, and that he is considered a non-believer. But there's just different degrees to how this is applied within the Islamic law. So, for example, um, if you got the people that are not completely non-believer, like somebody who's an atheist or somebody who's a of a religion that's not considered like people of the book, then this is basically Muslims cannot survive with them. Like if Muslims like get in a country, like when they used to happen, what used to happen with like the Muslim invasions of like different countries and stuff. The people that are not completely non-believers, like the kuffar, these people can only accept Islam, or they can be killed. You know what I'm saying? Exterminated, basically. So this is the main rule when it comes to like the completely non-believers of Islam, which is, like I said, everybody's considered a non-believer, but it's just like it's to a different like degree, so to a different point. The second thing is that would be the people of the book, which is the Christians and the Jews, and there are specific rules that would apply to these people. So basically, when Muslims used to invade countries and Christians or Jews lived in these countries, they basically had the choice to convert to Islam or pay tax, and still stay on the same, believing in the same religion, whether that being Christianity or Judaism, and basically pay a tax to the Muslims for remaining, on their same belief, basically. And it didn't really stop at that. There was a bunch of rules and a bunch of things that applied to them when it came down to just living with the Muslims in the same society and the same community. Like, they did not have access to the same rights as the Muslims in the Islamic law. If somebody's like from the people of the book Islamically, then they cannot have the same rights as a Muslim, and basically it's a lot of things. Like they can't really hold government offices, they can't be judges. They have to be actually have marks, like they have to be marked walking around in a society, and their houses they have to be marked with specific marks, so they can be recognized in the society. And they also cannot like perform their religious rituals in public, and they cannot commute in a lavish way, or like just go around flashing any of the religious signs in public as they go to their to worship or something like that. And for example, like for there is like different rules. Like for Christianity, like they can, for example, keep the churches that they already had before like the Muslims came in a country or invaded a country, but they cannot build any more churches, or they cannot build any more worship houses or worshiping places, new worshiping places after the Muslims had come in the country, or in a place. So that's also among a lot of the rules that apply to the people of the book when Muslims come in a country or live in a country. And there's also a lot of other rules and laws when it comes to the law of like in punishments, and like if somebody has a fight with somebody, or if somebody kills even somebody. There's a lot of like things that are really not cannot be described as fair in like a modern day terms. You know what I'm saying? So this is the first thing. So in a different video, I'm gonna dig deep into like specific rules about the the specific laws that apply to every body that is a non-believer in Islam within the Islamic society or within the Islamic community. Um, but basically that covers like the main rules for somebody to be considered a extremely non-believer, like a kafir in the context of Islam, or somebody that is from the people of the book, which are basically the people that believe in Christianity or Judaism, and they live within the Muslim rule, which, like I mentioned, they have the choice to convert to Islam or pay a tax to the Muslim ruler that is controlling the country that they live in. So, I mean, as just like an overview, this just shows how like intolerant the base of the ideology is. Like it is an ideology that does not allow for a lot of disagreement or a lot of challenge when it comes to its beliefs. And that, I mean, that is a big sign of like weakness when you're not able to have room for disagreement. It actually says something about your own beliefs, that and how weak they are when you're not able to have a lot of room for disagreement and a lot of room for just different ideas and different views about, you know, your that might be challenging to your own. So that's one of the main reasons. Like a lot of the weak ideologies and a lot of like the dictatorships, they always try to shut down like or shut off the other like channels of opinion, or like the other voices that might be challenging to them, or might be challenging their own set of beliefs or ideology. And this is a major like sign of weakness for this ideology. Besides, it just makes living with other people so hard and basically impossible if Muslims are in power or in rule. Then basically it's going to be so hard and so much worse for everybody else that eventually all the people from the other like religions or minorities, they have to move to different places away from like the Muslim rule, which is what happened over like centuries after like the Islamic after the Muslims conquered a lot of different countries in like Iraq and Syria and a lot of the North African countries. Basically, the minorities started like diminishing from these places, and they basically started looking for different places to live, because it was really hard to live under Muslim rule because of these set of beliefs that Islam has towards other people that are that have different views or different ideological views than the Muslims. In the next video, I'm gonna dig in like detail. I'm gonna talk about how exact like verses and exact things in the Islamic law that would address exactly what I was talking about, and how this properly or displays the base of what the Islamic ideology considers, you know, or believes what should happen to other people from like non-Islamic backgrounds or from different ideologies and different religions. So hope you guys like this video, and I'm gonna definitely be introducing a lot more evidence and a lot more discussion on the next one on this topic of why and the main the evidence from the main sources of Islamic law that proves, you know, or projects how Islam looks at other ideologies and other religions.